So now we're on the top of Daf Tzadiches Omid Beis, and the Gemara says, "Kan shona Rebbe Akol Balamos." In our Mishnah, it says that if she, the almona, made a profit on this sale, selling it at a higher value than its true market value, it's the Yisomim who get that extra value, but not her. And here's where Rebbe taught us that when a shliach is appointed as a proxy to purchase merchandise at a certain value on behalf of the shaleach, and the shliach buys at a cheaper price and receives a greater volume of merchandise for the set value that the Mishaleach wanted to reap in, Hakol Balamos. The surplus, the profit goes to the Mishaleach, not to the Shliach. If the buyer gave extra merchandise, more volume, he did it for the benefit of the Mishaleach, about the Balamos, the client, not for the proxy. The side as we learned in the Brisa, if a shliach receives money to buy a certain volume of merchandise, and osifulo, the seller adds an extra measure, achas yisera, beyond the market value, akol shliach divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Omer Cholke. So that according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to consider that the gift was given to the shliach, meaning the buyer wants to make sure that the shliach is going to come again to him and choose him when he fulfills his proxy. Gave a gift to the shliach. Rabbi Yossi says, no, we're not sure. The extra money, it doesn't go to the shliach, to the shaleach. What was the kavanah of the mocher? And therefore you have to split it in half because it's moment amuto b'sofik cholf. So and Rebbe had said that from our Mishnah we see a kol balamos, which doesn't seem to fit in neither with Rabbi Yehuda nor with Rabbi Yossi. So the Gemara asks now, Vasanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer kol balamos, which sounds like Rebbe's diuk in our Mishnah, which is not the same as cholkit. And where it says, Omer Rabbi lo kashit kan b'dov sheyesh lo kitzvah, v'kan b'dov she'ein lo kitzvah. The dov sheyesh lo kitzvah, it has a definite standard market value. Like, for example, you buy a bag of kitnios, which is sold, in the stores at a pruta, and now the mocher adds extra kitnios to the shliach. In such a case, Rebbe says cholkin because he has a suffix where the mocher had in mind to give a gift to the shliach or to give a gift to the mishalech. And therefore, Rabbi Yossi applies the din of cholkin, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that it's more logical to assume that the mocher gave a gift to the shliach. So the shliach would be motivated to come back again and again. However, the brisa in which Rabbi Yossi is quoted as paskening that the entire sum goes to the balamos, the shaleach, that's a davar she'ein kitzvah. And in a davar she'ein kitzvah, which doesn't have a definite value, sort of make an overall evaluation, which is called an omed. And sometimes you get an omed on a higher price, on a lower price. There's nothing absolute or standard. In those cases, if the shliach gets a cheaper price and gets, for example, a greater volume of merchandise for that cheaper price, then everything goes to the Mishaleach Balamos, because in this case, the mocher is not giving any sort of gift. That's how he thinks the sale is. That's what the payment is. Even though it's the high end, in other words, in his mind, he thinks he's paying the high end, Therefore, he gives more merchandise for that price. But in any event, that's part and swallowed up into the mecher itself, and therefore goes to the Baal Mos. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Yossi, and he holds that even in the case of a Dover Shem Lo Kitzvah, everything goes to the Shliach, because the reason why the sale was sold at a lower price is so that the Shliach would benefit from this additional merchandise, and then he'll come back again and again. So in our Mishnah, where the Almana is considered like the Shliach of the Yisovim to sell the Karka, and the Mechir of Karka is Eino Katsuv, it's always sold to the Ombin, you could find a really great variance in the price of Karka, sometimes sold less, cheaper, sometimes more expensive. So according to Rabbi Yossi, and apparently we pass like Rabbi Yossi, in the Dover Shem Lo Kitzvah, everything goes back to the Baal Mos, which means that the Tosefus is considered swallowed up in the Mecher itself because there's no set value. So now we get back to the Almana who sold the Karka, that's a Dover Shem Lo Kitzvah. Lokech was willing to pay Masayim, even though you could have sold it at Mona and you could have bought it at a Mona, but the Masayim is not a Matona, but it's part of the payment for the Karka as a Dover Shem Lo Kitzvah, and therefore the Somim get the additional value. Amar Papa Hilchus Dover Shem Lo Kitzvah, Tolki. This is a repeat of Rabbi Yossi, that if it's if it's Yesh Lo Kitzvah, obviously the moker is giving a gift. No, I'm sorry. We don't know to whom he's earmarking this gift. It's cholki. Dovashem Lo Kitzvah Kol Balavos. The rest of Michael Mashmalon is, why didn't Rav Papa simply say Alocha Rav Yossi? And our answer is that Rav Papa wants to teach us Shinuya Deshaninon Shinuyahu. That the explanation that we saw from Rabbi Bar Chama, who differentiates between Dover Sheish Lo Kitzvah and Dover Shein Lo Kitzvah, is correct. It's la'alacha, and it wasn't some sort of dihu, just to try to defend and reconcile the apparent contradiction in the advice of Rabbi Yosef. Now, once we dealt with the issue of a shliach who sells karka in order to fulfill the command, the mandate of the Mishaleach, but he made a change. So now we're going to talk about the following scenarios. When is the shlichus kayim? When is shlichus botel? Iboilu ormalei zabili lischa. A man appoints a shliach to sell karka at the size of a lesser, which is a base chatzi kur that has enough room for planting 15 sav for the other zabin lekora. And the shliach went ahead and sold an area of karka that's twice the amount of a lesser. Instead of a base chatzi kur, a full kur. My. More wants to know, shall we say, at least on the Chatzi Kur, his shlichus is valid, and the Mechira is bona fide and recognized, or should we say that the whole deal is off? The Gemara analyzed the two studies. Mosef al Dvara, as far as the Ikar shlichus, the shlichus was on a Chatzi based Kur, which was exactly what the shliach sold. And yet the shliach was Mosif, and although the Tosefus obviously is not going to be a valid sale, but the shlichus is not bought. Lischa miyakoni. As far as the Chatzi Kur is concerned, the loket, the buyer, actually has a valid kinyan. Oh, Dilma should say no. Mavir al Dvarvu, he's not being Mosif. The shliach is not adding an extra Chatzi Kur, but rather he is undermining his shlichus, he's mafkia his shlichus because he's violating the commission and the mission that was given to by the Mishaleach. And therefore, even on the lesser, there's no key. And the Gemara now, to answer this question, is going to stretch its arm out to the laws of Me'ilah, in the case of a Shliach. Omar of Yaakov Minar Kod, Mishmeder Avina, Oshma. We learned in a Mishnah Masechet Me'ilah, Omar Balabais L'Shlucha, Elem Chaticha, we can give one piece, one slice of meat in this kli, out of the 3 slices that are there, to the guests. He doesn't know, the Balabais, that this is Hegdesh. V'hu Omer, and the Shliach says to Yochim, Tlu Shtayim, take 2 pieces of meat. V'heim Natu Sholosh, they added a 3rd Chaticha, which they took. Kula Mo, the Balabais, the Mishalech, is Moel because he sent the Shliach inadvertently, not knowing it was Hegdesh, to be Motzi a Chaticha Rishona L'Chul. The Shliach was Moel because he added a 2nd Chaticha, which was beyond the purview of the Shlichus. It was Midaito, and that's Me'il. And the Orchim were Moel because they added a 3rd Chaticha. Says the Gemara, this is Rabbi Yaakov, if you'll tell me that the Shliach, when he was commanded to do a little, and he did a lot, it's considered that he fulfilled the Shlichus, but he's Mosif al Dvorav, he's only adding a Tosefes, Mishum Hachi, therefore Balabais Moab. The Balabais vis-a-vis the first Chaticha is a Moab, because the Shlichus was called on that first Chaticha. And even though the Shliach did not fulfill his Shlichus in the way he was commissioned to do so, nevertheless, he was just Mosif al Dvorav. He's not being Oker his Shlichus. But if you'll tell me the Shliach is considered as violating the purview of his mission, of his commission, and therefore he's mafkir the Shlichus, Balbais on my Moel. Why should the Balbais be a Moel? He had no interest in being Motzi Hegdesh Tachuli. But not as we learned in the Mishnah, Me'ilah Daf Kaf, Shaliach Shal Shlichus of Balbais Moel. There is Shlichus in Me'ilah, even though generally speaking we say Ein Shlichus V'Aver, but the Gemara and the Sefer Kedusha derives from Psukim that Me'ilah is the exception. There is Shlichus for Me'ilah, but that's only a Shliach who fulfilled the Shlichus, but laws are Shlichus. So if he violated his Shlichus and made a change, then he's no longer considered the extended arm, so to speak, of the Mishalech. So you can't fault the Mishalech under the laws of Me'ilah, but Shaliach Moel. It's the Shliach who's the Moel, and therefore the Shliach should be the Moel when 2 Chatichas are eaten by the guests. And now we can be Poshe with Machriya, the suffix that we asked, in the case of a Balbais who says to the Shliach, sell me on my behalf a Lasach, and he sold just the opposite, just double that amount of Kur, Mosif al Dvarav. There's no Akiris HaShlichus. And Mechiru Bichal, at least on a Lasach. So here too, in the case of Chaticha Achas, the Shlichus is Chal vis-a-vis that one Chaticha, therefore the Balbais is Moel. And the Shliach is just being Mosif al Dvarav. And the Gemara rejects the proof of Rabbi Yaakov. Very possible that when a Shliach was commanded to do a little and he did more, the whole Shliach is batel. Nevertheless, the Balbais is Moel. Because Achmayas Kinan, the Omer Lahu, the Shliach said to the Orchid, Tlu Achas Midaita Shal Balbais, take 1 Chaticha al das the Balbais, the Achas an additional Chaticha Midaiti on my say so. The Shakul Inu Tlas, they took a 3rd one. So since he said explicitly that he was commanded to give to the Orchim only 1 Chaticha, he then fulfills his Shlichus. The Balbais is a Moel vis-a-vis the Chaticha Rishonah. The Shliach is only Kibosiv al Dvorav. But if the Shliach changes on his own das without mentioning what his commission was, for example, if he would have said to the Orchim Tichu Shtayim without telling them that one of them was al das of Balbais, then it's quite possible that the Balbais would be completely exonerated from the Ilah because the Shliach is Maver al Dvorav. The shliach is being oker shlichus. And we're left with our suffix in the case where the mocher sent the shliach to sell a losach, and the shliach went ahead and sold twice that amount of kur. It's possible the shliach is considered madral divrei balabayis, and therefore he's mafkia the shlichus, and the mechira is not valid even on the losach. But maybe we could be poshet this suffix from our Mishnah. Paisach subasa mona, umakra shavamona v'dina b'mona michra bata. Like the ksuba was worth a mona, and the almona sold the karka, which was worth a mona and a dina for a mona. The mecher is invalid. The Gemara interprets the Mishnah in the following way: my love, the zabin shova mona v'dina b'mona v'dina. The almona sold the karka at its market value. It was marketed at a dinar beyond the mona, and she sold it at a dinar beyond the mona. And when it says the dinar b'mona, what does b'mona mean? It means mona shalom. So she sold the karka. When it says she sold the karka, if you take the Mishnah literally b'mona, it doesn't mean that she sold the karka b'mona. She sold the karka of shava mona b'dinar to be porea a ksuba b'mona. Umay afilu, and what does it mean when the Mishnah says afilu? He omers aksid dinar liyorshim michra botel. So that's partial. Certainly, she has to return that dinar to the yorshim. Right? She was selling the karka for a price that exceeds the value of her ksuba. So certainly that extra dinar belongs to the Yisomim. She can't pocket it herself. So what does the Mishnah mean? The Mishnah means afili omeres axios adina liyorshim v'dinar mikarkoi. I'm going to go back to the local, buy back a piece of karka that's worth a dinar, and I'll return that extra karka that I'm buying back from the lokeach to the Yisomim. So it's as if I sold karka at the value of a mona, and only at the value of a mona, because Lamaisa she's getting, the Yisomim are receiving an extra dinar. And nevertheless, the Mishnah paskins michra bata. Right? So we see clearly that if a person is sent as a shliach to sell karka at a certain size, and it was sold at a greater volume, a greater size, then that's called mavir al midot. So the mecher is bata. The almona is viewed as a shliach of the Yisomim to sell karka at the value of a mona. She went ahead and sold the value of a mona vid dinar. She wasn't commissioned to do so, and that's called a shina, and that shina is considered mavir al hashlichus, and therefore there's no shlichus, mafkia the shlichus, and the mecher is bata. And the Gemara rejects this raya as well. Omar from the breder of Nasan, look, we're not talking about a case where she sold a karka that was worth more than what she was commissioned to sell, but rather the ozil. She sold a piece of karka at less than its value. So she sold a karka that was marketed at mona of a dinar, and she sold it for a mona. So therefore, there was a tos in this sale as far as its price is concerned. The mecher is batel midin tos. And even though she says she's willing to pay out of pocket for the loss that was suffered by the Yisomim, nevertheless, and if the mechira was on a karka shava mona v'dinar, she would have sold it for a mona v'dinar, we wouldn't say the whole mecher is batel, and the odor from the karka that shava dinar would go back to the Yisomim. But this is a different case. This is a case where there was a tos in the sale itself. And therefore, you cannot be poshet from that Mishnah this suffering. And then this is where we'll stop. on the top of Sadi Tesameh. Everyone should have a good money.